Hello, everyone. Welcome to my channel. My name is Adriana, and I go by Tingles Bells ASMR. If this is your first time watching this video in this series, if this is your first no sleep video of mine that you've watched, we are on part 7 of this 16-part story that I personally think is amazing, and it's been having a great build. But anyway, so I'm reading part 7 today, so you can either decide to stay and listen to the very brief synopsis of what has happened so far before I get into the next part, or you can start at part 1, which is in a playlist I created called Reddit No Sleep. So all the parts are in order if you want to start from the beginning. Okay, so with that said, let's get to part 7. First, I thought I bumped my mic for a second. It mutes really easily. So today I'm drinking this. I've been drinking this constantly. It's so good. I'm drinking this Arnold Palmer. It's super delicious. Okay, so let's start part 7. Okay, so if you don't feel like reading my other posts, just read this. Skip to below the links if you're up to speed. The links. Okay. Yeah, okay. So my fiance Faye has had a sleep disorder since she was a little girl. Night terrors, sleepwalking, sleep talking, etc. The condition is generally under control, but is exacerbated by stress or trauma. A few days ago, we went on vacation and stayed in a cabin owned by her parents in Pikes Peak, Colorado. We found a creepy homemade dream catcher in the forest behind the cabin, and at night we heard a voice or voices calling out from the woods saying all kinds of terrifying things. Sometimes it would mimic people we know, including deceased relatives. Faye's sleep disturbances got much worse, and while sleep talking one night, I overheard her answering strange questions about herself and me. When we returned to our home in Colorado, when we returned to her home in California, her behavior became extremely erratic, and she is convinced that something has followed us back. Okay. Because of her worsening condition, I had the house blessed and purged and flew back to Colorado to demand answers from Faye's parents and revisit the cabin. The Pikes Ranger, who is a Pueblo Indian, agreed to bring tribal elders to investigate the cabin in nearby forest. My 3 closest friends are taking care of Faye back home. And jump ahead. And now we are currently in part 7. So people have been requesting this more. This is really hard for me to do at first. It's still kind of hard, but it's people have been requesting snapping too. Oh fuck. Okay, sorry. Okay, alright, so it's been an interesting few days. I have so much to say, so I'm going to try to be terse. Oh, okay. Sorry that it's taken so long to report. I really am trying. All of your questions and analysis of these events have really helped us through the struggle. Some of your observations are what brought me back here in Colorado. I landed in the Denver International Airport 2 nights ago and stayed with Faye's parents in Arvada. I think that's how you say it. While there, we all sat down and I basically forced them to tell me what was going on. A Redditor pointed out that, Laura, Faye's mom, appeared to be lying truth, in quotes. Faye had been to the cabin as a toddler a few times, and when she was 5, something happened to her. While Greg, Faye's dad, and Faye were outside playing in the snow. So while they're outside playing in the snow, Faye wandered off toward the edge of the forest to look in. She was following a voice. Greg was building a snowman and keeping his eye on her. They were only a few dozen yards apart. Allegedly, Greg heard Faye talking, answering questions, but he couldn't hear anyone else talking. He started walking toward her to bring her back, and he heard her say, "Faye, no, it's Faye, I can't see you." A moment later, little Faye began shrieking and crying. She went stiff as a board, and Greg had to pick her up and haul her back inside. She was almost catatonic and would go through bouts of total silence or inconsolable hysterics for several hours until Greg and Laura decided to go back down the mountain and take her to the hospital. Greg claims he never saw anyone in the woods and never heard any voices. Sorry, my hair is like really getting in my eye. Hold on. Okay. Yeah, okay, that's better. Greg claims he never saw anyone in the woods and never heard any voices speaking to Faye. The doctors thought she had an epileptic seizure, and to this day, Faye does not remember going to the cabin. When I took her, she acted like she'd never seen it before. Whoa. Interesting. I believe that if Faye did remember being traumatized as a child, she'd never want me to go back. So I really think she's blocked out the whole experience. Or it was brainwashed out of her. And when we visited a week ago, she thought it was her first time going. In Laura and Greg's subsequent visits to the cabin without Faye, Greg experienced terrible nightmares in which dead people entered the bedroom and sat on the ground in bed watching him sleep. Okay. It's getting real. Alright. In the morning, Greg let me borrow his truck but refused to go to the cabin with me. He told me when I left, "We let you kids go up there because we honestly wanted to believe there was nothing actually wrong with the place. They used it to validate their denial. But I don't hold them responsible. I'd never have believed any of this if I were them. Dreams and a frightened child do not a haunting make." I arrived in Pikes Peak around 1 p.m. yesterday, and the ranger met me at the cabin. We investigated the place and didn't find anything unusual, except that a single lampshade had been removed from one of the lamps and placed on the couch. We checked out. That has to mean something. Like, there's no way, one, right? With how aggressive these spirits are. So sometimes whispering a lot, and I know this because I'm a speech language pathologist, guys. So sometimes whispering too much. Sorry, it's so dark, and like, I swear I felt something next to me move, and it's not my dog. What was I saying? Oh, whispering excessively is actually a lot more harmful on your vocal cords. So I don't always whisper in these videos. These are really long stories, and for me to whisper every single one for 16 parts. So some are soft-spoken, some are whispered. If you look in the thumbnail, it will say that. So it's either going to be in the title or in the thumbnail. But yeah, I just wanted to mention that. I think, I didn't realize either that, like, when I first started watching ASMR, you would think, oh, whispering is probably less damaging on your voice, but no, it's the opposite. So just a little food for thought. Yeah, okay. Hold on, okay, so refused to go to the cabin with me. He told me when I left, we let you. Okay, we read that part already. Okay. That night. Okay, so the lampshade part. Okay. That night, some shit happened. Greg told me he'd hidden a 357 Magnum in the closet. I don't know if I'm saying that right. So I retrieved it in a really dope-ass purple bathrobe and felt a little better. Don't worry, I don't know how to shoot and how. Don't worry, I know how to shoot and how to keep it safe. Okay. Right around sunset, I walked out to Greg's truck to grab a few things I neglected to bring in earlier, and I heard two distinct voices chattering in the woods. It was snowing like crazy and the wind was howling, but above the storm I heard a gruff, masculine voice and a younger adolescent male voice. They were both yammering incomprehensible gibberish from two different places. I hurried back inside and locked the door. The stuff they were saying was pure madness. It made no sense, and this part is in all caps. So, put them up there, put them in the trees, and walk on there. Go ahead. I just sat there imagining psychotic cannibals jabbering with their tongues hanging out and eyes rolled back in their skulls. I don't like that image. Okay. I figured they'd come out of the woods as soon as it was dark. I tried to reach out to Faye back home, but my phone wouldn't get any reception in the cabin. The storm was too strong. I tried to play video games on the SNES, but I was so distracted by all the sounds outside. Every single noise that the blizzard produced caught my ear, and so my imagination manifested all kinds of horrifying creatures slinking around out there in the dark. When I finally went to bed, the wind died down a bit and I heard a few more voices. There was a distant, high-pitched wail that echoed across the entire mountain. There was a child crying, saying something like, "Put me down in the hole. It's so deep you can crawl forever," but his voice sort of glitched and it would suddenly become deeper, as though a grown man were doing an impression of a little kid. I also heard someone hacking and vomiting and crying, begging for help. I didn't fall for any of it. Ooh, that part's really creeped me out. Alright, I need to sip. I need to hydrate. Okay. I'm 28 years old, and this is the most afraid I've ever been in my entire life, even with Faye walking around like a fleshy marionette and calling out to a presence in the dark of my own home. To a presence in the dark of my own home. Around the time I was getting into bed, approximately 12:45 a.m., there was a gentle tapping sound on the window in the living room. No, it was soft. Okay, it was soft, like a neighbor who was reluctant to bother me. I stood there in the bedroom with the door open, holding my breath, trying to figure out if I'd imagined it. Then I heard it again, so I crept down the short hall and peeked around the corner just in time. Just in time to see a figure walking past the windows and toward the front door. With the curtains drawn, I couldn't make out anything but a big shadow. Oh, why is that part creeping me out so much right now? Then it knocked on the door. It was a gentle knock. A man's voice called out softly. This freaks me out because just like the fact that it's manipulating someone's weaknesses and their emotions, like, you know, Dementors in Harry Potter is like that, but oh man, that's creepy. Okay. Then it knocked on the door. It was a gentle knock. A man's voice called out. A man's voice called out softly. Hello? I just listened intently and tried to keep silent. Eventually he knocked again and said, Hello? I need to speak with you. He was speaking through clenched teeth. He was either extremely cold or extremely angry. No. Okay, I just accidentally clicked on part 8. Okay. Oh my god. Oh, I'm really freaked out right now, actually. Okay, so he said, I need to speak with you. He's speaking through clenched teeth. He was either extremely cold or extremely angry. I very carefully stepped back into the bedroom to grab the gun, but the goddamn place is so old the doors creak. No. I barely tapped the bedroom door as I passed, and it squealed like a dying pig. Then the man outside said, just above a whisper, I know you're there. For just a moment in my lethargy, I can't say that word, I considered the possibility that this was one of the ranger's friends, or maybe somebody else who lived on the mountain. I was never going to open the door, but stupidly, I figured talking to it couldn't hurt. Oh no. I say it because I immediately stopped believing there was a human being on the other side. The moment I opened my mouth, I said, who the fuck is it? As assertively as I could. The second I stopped talking, whoever it was out there repeated my question while mimicking my voice accurately. It almost sounded like an echo. Then he said, may I come in, please? His voice was a little shaky, but it definitely sounded like me, and unnervingly similar to me. But he was still clenching his teeth, so I could hear the difference. I pointed the gun at the door. It was dark in the house, so you couldn't see what I was doing through the curtain, and said, if you don't get the fuck out of here right now, I'll blow you in half. For those of you who don't know what a 357 could do to a person, a slug to the chest essentially makes you into a human milkshake, and that's after passing through 2 inches of oak door. We both just stood there for a dreadfully long minute. It started testing out my voice, groaning and whispering and muttering. It said a lot of things, but I only remember a few of them. No. What's your name? What's your name? A little cabin for the weekend, for it says a bunch of lip smacking and chewing noises. It's so creepy. They're lying, the ones out there. La 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 la. Just flailing his tongue around and making noises like a child would. I have to laugh, guys, because if I don't laugh, then I'm gonna get really freaked out. You aren't alone in there, and I'm not alone out here. What's your name? And you go up in the trees or down in the hole, and that's where you go. Oh, they'll find you either way. The sound of my own voice making these horrific noises and phrases set every inch of my skin on fire. I can hardly describe the physical sensation of fright this intense. It was almost like having a bad fever, hot and cold and wet and sticky all at the same time. I shouted for it to leave and said I was armed. I considered firing off a round, but that's a decision you can't take back, and my number one rule is to only fire when I'm certain I've got a target and a clear reason. I am proud to say that I can use my voice a lot better than whatever it was that mimicked me. I'm a soft-spoken guy, but I came down like a fucking hurricane screaming, I will fucking kill you. He simply replied in a softer tone of my own voice, I will fucking kill you. Then I went back to babbling gibberish and knocking politely on the door over and over and over. After another minute or two, it suddenly stopped. The last thing it said was, I know where she is. Then it kicked the door, and I mean harder than any human could possibly kick a door, and ran off. The boom was so loud I couldn't believe the door didn't implode in its frame. The person thing bounded down the wooden patio and off into the snow, and I swear on my life and honor it sounded like a horse or some other huge four-legged animal charging off into the woods. A child's laughter rang out, and then everything was silent. Oh, okay, almost done. That's a long one, but shit has gone real. Needless to say, I remained in a cat-like state of delirious paranoia for the rest of the night. The storm picked back up, and I did not hear anything else. I spent the whole night debating whether the thing at the door I was talking about sentence haunts me even now. As I write this, it's my voice. It was purposeful and restrained. It chose the words carefully, and it knew exactly what to say. I've been thinking a lot about what Redditors have been saying about Faye being some kind of doppelganger. When I first saw the nude woman on my car, I thought it was a trick to lure me into the woods where the voices lay. I thought the real Faye stopped me from leaving the cabin, but many of you have pointed out that the reverse could be entirely possible, given how the Faye I took home to California is behaving, given how she failed all of my tests, and given how her engagement ring has been missing since we got home. So I sat there for hours considering whether I should go out into the woods during broad daylight to search for my fiancé. Of course it's a stupid idea, but now I understand why people in horror movies do idiotic things. If I'm not looking for her or for answers, why am I here? I need to know what I saw that day in the driveway. I need to know if there are many voices or just one, and I need to know how to get this all back to normal. You know, this is an older story. This sentence, I don't know many people that still have these. I listened to music on my iPod and desperately tried to distract myself by reading news articles online until daybreak. Most of them wouldn't load because the gods of internet have cursed this cabin. Around 4 a.m. I got up to get some food from the kitchen and I opened the window curtain a little bit to see if anything was going on outside. A ton of snow had fallen. At the rim of the forest, dozens of yards out, I could see a distant figure standing perfectly still in the moonlight. Okay. He was facing away, staring off into the darkness of the woods. I checked on him every 20 minutes since then. He never moved. When the sun rose around 6:15 a.m., he was gone. I never saw his face. Today, the ranger and his two buddies came to the cabin as promised. They were instantly likable and warm. One of them, T-Way, is a medicine man in his 60s and was especially cool. The other was his son Nathan, who was probably just a few years older than me. They told me all kinds of interesting lore about Pikes Peak and surrounding areas, and then proceeded to tell me a disturbing story that they believe explains the strange activity on the mountain. For the sake of brevity, I will relay this in my next post. The ranger gave me one of his facility's satellite phones to stay in contact with him in case of emergencies. I used it to call Faye, but she didn't answer. Sketch. So I called Jason and Richard, who are presently caring for her. Apparently, Faye had become inexplicably outraged after taking a shower, threw an enormous tantrum, and locked herself in her bedroom. She refused to eat for the rest of the night. Allison and Jamie slept in the guest room, and Richard slept on our couch downstairs and worked late on his commissions. He's a digital artist. He told me that around 1 a.m., the same time I had my visitor, Faye ran downstairs into the kitchen, eyes closed, and started drinking out of the sink faucet. I almost said she started drinking out of the Fink faucet. Then she turned around and stared, eyes still shut, at Richard while he was at the breakfast table. She said, "Felix," to which he replied, "He's in Colorado, Faye, remember?" And then she said, "We sent him there to die." Then she sat down right there on the kitchen tiles and went back to sleep. I've instructed my friends only to wake Faye if she does anything serious, so they observed my rules and got her back in bed without much of an issue. For all of the crazy shit Faye does when she's asleep, at least she never gets violent. The guys put her back into bed easily enough. The next day, Allison bailed on the whole project. She said she was awake all night listening to Faye whispering through the wall. Faye told Allison about how there was a man in the house and he was asking about her. My flight home is the day after tomorrow, so I'm going to have to figure all this shit out real quick. I'm going to take a nap. It's nice and bright outside. No voices. Good night. P.S. As soon as I get home, I will put up the Faye video. Wah. Not available. And then he said, and then that will be the end of it. I resent myself for turning into this. For resent myself for turning this into such a long and ridiculous blog of my experiences. Whew. All right, I need to take a breath for a second. Whew. Process all of that. That was a lot. Why? This is the only light I have, and I have a light, like another light over here. That's it. Why did I do that? That was really stupid. Whew, that was creepy. That was really that was really creepy. What do you guys think? What do you think? What do you think? What do you think?